Hello everyone. So we're here today to take a look at the rules for naming acids. So we're going to get 3 rules today, and that should cover all of the different acids that you're going to encounter in Science 10. So if you look at the rules, they're a little bit confusing when you read them. So the first one says, when the negative ion ends in IDE, the acid name is blank. So in order to be able to figure that out, we first have to have an example. So in this example, we've got HCl. So the first step that you're going to do when you're asked to name this acid is you're going to look at its name as a covalent compound. So its name as a covalent compound is hydrogen chloride. Okay, remember we always change the ending to IDE in both ionic and covalent compounds. And so when the rule talks about the negative ion is Cl because it's going to be Cl minus. When it ends in IDE, so you can see that the ending here is IDE. That means we turn the acid name into hydroblankic acid. So remember, from when we looked at the neutralization reactions, we always know that we have an acid when it begins with an H. So if something begins with an H, you know that you've got an acid. So the regular compound name is hydrogen chloride, and because it has the IDE at the end, that means we're going to change the acid name to hydroblankic acid. So we take this part, the chlor part, and we insert it into this blank right here. So that means this compound, this acid's name, is hydrochloric acid. Okay, we can look at another example, HF. So first, right off the bat, we know it's an acid because it begins with the letter H, it begins with hydrogen. So the regular name for this is hydrogen fluoride. Okay, so right away we see that the negative ion ends in IDE, so we're going to use rule number 1. So anytime it ends in IDE, we use rule number 1, and we just take this section right here and we put it in this blank up at the top. So this is hydrofluoric acid. And that's it for rule number 1. So you take the regular name of the covalent compound, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen iodide, and if it ends in IDE, you follow rule number 1, hydroblankic acid. Moving on to rule number 2. So rule number 2 states when the negative ion ends in ate, ATE, the acid name is going to be blankic acid. So anything that ends in ATE is going to be one of your polyatomic ions. And so you get your polyatomic ion sheet, you get to take that into the exam with you. So examples of ates are going to be SO4 2-, that equals sulfate. Phosphate is PO4 3-, and so on and so forth. So we get our acid, and say our acid is one that includes sulfate. It's going to look like H2SO4. So if our acid is H2SO4, the regular covalent compound is going to be hydrogen sulfate. Okay, because remember, our polyatomic names don't change. We don't change the ending of them. And so we see right away that the ending is ATE, so it matches rule number 2. So then we just take this part and we put it into this blank. So you think to yourself, hey, sulfic acid. That's not exactly it. The 2 examples that I've brought up here are just a little bit different, and it's called sulfuric acid. Okay, so sulfuric acid. I'm not really sure why they kind of bend the rule. So it's just the regular element name, sulfur, sulfuric acid from sulfate. And I think, I don't know, maybe it just sounds better. So it takes that rule a little bit, but we've got the ATE and the ending is blank-ic acid. So we look at our next example, which is this one here. So if we were to take this name, it would be hydrogen phosphate. So again, we see the ATE at the end, so it's going to be blankic acid, and this one equals phosphoric acid. Okay, so again, it's not phosphic acid, it's phosphoric acid. And then I'm just gonna give you one that doesn't follow that rule, if I can think of another 8. Oh, carbonate. So carbonate is CO3 2-. So if we put it in a compound with hydrogen, okay, this gives us hydrogen carbonate. So we see that ATE at the ending, so we take this part right here, we take the root and we put that in our blank up here, so this is carbonic acid. So those are 3 examples that follow rule number 2. So anytime you have an 8 at the ending of the regular name, to turn it into the acid name, it's blankic acid. And moving on to rule number 3, that's when you have an ion, and again this is going to be one of the polyatomic ions. When it ends in ITE, the acid name is going to be blank-us acid. So it follows the similar pattern to the one up above. So we've got ClO2- or NO2-. This is chlorite, this is nitrite. So if we put that into a compound containing hydrogen to make it our acid, it would look like this. Okay? So the regular name for this is hydrogen chlorite. So to turn it into the acid name, we recognize that we've got an ITE, so it's going to be blank-us acid. So we take this part right here, we put it into that blank, so that is going to be chlorous acid. Okay, so following rule number 3, we've got our root right here, the ending changes to OUS, chlorous acid. And then the next one is just HNO2. Okay, so our regular name is hydrogen nitrite. So we see the ITE ending, so we take our root, we put it into that blank there, so we have nitrous acid as our acid name. So that's pretty much it. That is the 3 rules for naming acids. If you follow those rules and follow that pattern, you should get those right every time. Alright, thanks very much.